As soon as the leading edge touches the ground, I'm striking the ball. So it virtually, not always, but it virtually guarantees the strike. For basic chipping, you should use a hinge movement and no cocking action in the wrist. As I told you earlier, that's a wrist cock, that's a down cock, that's hinge back and hinge forward. We want a hinge back, really, and that's all with the chipping, hinge back and hinge through. So it rolls very simply backwards and forwards. So it's back and through. It hinges backwards and through. Simple rolling action. The left hand does very little. A subtle left hinge, but a little bit more right hinge here, and take it through to finish. Okay, just a very simple chipping action.
Peter, chipping, you go from what iron to what iron? Like a 5-iron to a pitching wedge?
Yeah, I would go anywhere from a 5-iron to a pitching wedge to make sure the ball rolls.
And what determines that?
Well, really, the amount of grass, rough grass, you've got to get over before you get on the green. So 5-iron you would get pretty close here, not much to carry, and then go to a longer flag, and then as we go further away, progressively go 6, 7, 8, 9, pitching wedge, really. But a chip defines the ball rolling much more than it's flighted.
Absolutely. And your first contact point that you want the ball to land is on the green, so you have a consistent rollout, and not in the fringe. And so that's why you change your lofts to do that. And the feet also are very close, so you have no lateral movement whatsoever. You stay really close, and the hinge comes up and it comes away from the ball, okay, and it just falls right on the ball, and depending upon which loft it runs out. It's actually very easy.
Yeah,
and Peter makes it even look easier.
It's pretty easy because you've got the natural force to help you. Every time I move this club off the ground, where does it want to go? The natural force of the club really just helping you to, hinge it back and hinge it through. This club is more vertical there. If I now swing the club back and let it come back, it's virtually going to come back to the same position every time. So I'd like to see people who struggle with the chipping in particular to get in much tighter. And they worry about the heel being off the ground, but they shouldn't, because it's not going to have any effect the lie, because I'm not hitting it hard enough, I'm not swinging the club hard enough. So really, more vertical, let your arms extend to a full length, let your club extend, so you've got a constant from your shoulder position to your club face. And now if you just go back and let the club fall, you'll start striking the same point every time.
I'm going to steal a line from Ray Floyd. He called it putting with loft.
Yep.
All right, so I like to get the club pretty vertical. I'm not standing way out here with the hands real low. I'm almost more in my putting stance at this point with weight on my left foot. And that allows me to kind of swing my shoulders and make solid contact.
I'm trying to get the heel as high as I can. That's what Raymond Floyd used to always tell me.
Yeah.
And then get your hand up there like that and stand as close as you can to it. So.
And then just hit little baby hooks.
Yeah, basically. Does that feel weird to you?
No, not really. It's a little closer than I normally am.
Yep. But you're also a lot taller too.
Yeah. When I start chipping poorly, I'll start using too much of the leading edge, and I kind of almost like the grip goes first, and I start leading that leading edge.
Yeah, you see like Jordan, you use the leading edge all the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm more of a bounce guy.
Yeah.
Especially on these high ones. If I can't use the leading edge and hit it high.
Especially when you're into the grain.
Yeah.
No chance.
It's not very easy to play shots into the grain because the grass snags the club. So if you play an ordinary shot as an ordinary stance and you get any what we call shaft lean and shaft drive, you're going to get grass trapped between the ball and the club face, and possibly too much grass so that you actually duff the ball. Alright? So a principle for into the grain shots really is get it up vertical, turn the toe in, and really allow the toe to go down under the ball. As soon as the leading edge touches the ground, I'm striking the ball. So it virtually, not always, but it virtually guarantees the strike. Simple as that, really.
Well done.
Right, what we're going to talk to you about now is a basic pitch. Now, pitch is one that actually flights more than it runs. So what happens here, we want a little bit of cocking in the actual action. With the chip, we add all hinge. With the pitch, it's a combination of cock and the wrist hinge. So a combination. So if you watch very carefully as we go back, that's at a point where there's no real wrist cock, and as we go beyond that first movement, then the wrist cock. Now we're into the pitching mode when the wrist cock. With that natural force wanting to fall, we've got to make sure we don't react to that. We've got to move it into a position where the club will fall down and allow us the momentum force to pick the ball up. So a very simple pitch is move the club through position so there's no real movement in the wrist cock until about hip height, then the wrist cock. Now as we're coming back, we move the club back into this natural force where it uncocks. So it's a very simple wrist cock, wrist uncock. You know, simple as that really. What I'm going to do now is talk you through a 50-yard pitch. And what I like to do with a 50-yard pitch is have a lot more control of the club. So if I'm hitting a 50-yard pitch, I will probably grip down at least 2 inches on my 56. It's about control, it's about ball flight control. Pitching's all about ball flight control, and that means controlling your speed and your loft. So for me, 50 yards, my 50-yard shot is a basic half a turn, which means half a shoulder turn with my hands about ab high, just above my abs and between my abs and my chest. And I know that with a 56, when I move to that position, that will give me a 50-yard pitch. And all I've got to use is momentum speed with that. I haven't got to increase the speed, I've just got to use momentum speed. So when I set up, slightly open, weight on my left side, grip down 2 inches, and now move my shoulders about half a turn, my hands with a little bit of wrist cock reach just above my abs, in between my abs and my chest, and from there I'm allowing that club to again to fall with natural force and pick it up with my body on the way through. So that will look a little bit like this. So half a turn with the abs, and then from there we pitch it down, about a 50-yard pitch. Use the bounce.
We get back to 50 yards, all we're doing is going back slightly farther and we're still accelerating into the ball. So then from that 30-yard shot, this 50-yard shot is going to look very similar, only a little longer backswing. We're able to make consistent contact and have these 30 and 50-yard shots feel like chip shots.
Every club in your bag wants to return to vertical. Look at it. Every time. Okay? Every club, wherever you put it. So when I stand here, what is stopping that club going to vertical? The mat and my hand. Okay? So every time I move this club off the ground, where does it want to go? Wants to return to the ground. Now when you see your beginners and you ask your beginners, they stand there when they first start with this club, and all their pals have told them to keep their head still, but as they swing the club back, it comes off the ground. They don't know there's a force pushing it down there. So what happens is they let the force and they hit behind the ball, and then all the pals tell them they've lifted the head. You've lifted your head, that's why you hit behind it. You've lifted, what, lifted the head? No, it's the force that pulled them down. And so when they've done that 3 or 4 times, what happens is the pals say, well, if you push your hands forward, you'll hit the ball instead of the ground. So they're reacting to the weight, but their hands are forward, so they hit the ball. But they have got absolutely no chance of hitting the ball up in the air. And this is why so many players shank, because as the club comes past parallel to ground and starts going up, what happens? The club falls that way. What happens? Everybody reacts. 99.9% of people react. So as it's going back, I can't shank it, but that's, you know, basically what they do, they react. So that movement and they shank. So what we've got to do is say, right, if that natural force is always there, why don't I use it? So when the club starts falling, what does a good pitcher and a good chipper do?
Go forward.
Yeah, they move this left shoulder to put the club in a position where now it's useful to me. This way. Useful. And as it's going to fall to the ground, I keep this left shoulder moving around and up to counteract and use these forces with an equal and opposite reaction in force. That's laws of physics, equal and opposite reaction in force. So moving the club around where it's useful, letting it fall and moving that left shoulder. So from there I move it around and let it fall. And you can see there is not a lot of energy in that, there is just momentum. So now, because I'm moving the club into a position, I'm now allowed to use my wrist correctly, and I can get more speed without effort. So moving the club correctly so I can get the club working in the correct path, plane, impact condition. So I move it around and that left shoulder moves around, so I virtually let the club fall and moves with it. Okay? So I'm using the club's energy. I'm not muscling it. And what happens to most people, as we've said, unfortunately, as the club gets to this point, they react. And especially if, like I said to you this morning, this shoulder isn't stable, it's back here, it can't support the club very well. It reacts. Whereas if it's strong and I can support it, I can then move it. It's not coming over the top. And that's why so many amateurs come over the top. Why? Because they know the ball is out in front of them, and as the club starts falling there, they say, well, the ball's not there, it's there. So they feel that force and they move the force into a position where they think they can get it back to the ball. That's why they're not really coming over the top. They're reacting to a force, so they're not using it. So they're moving it out, and then, of course, as they move it out and it's steep, they can't get the club working correctly. So much loft on to start with. Okay? Now, if in the change of direction, I haven't got a stable shoulder and I feel the club fall, 99.9% of people grab. They feel it grab. So what happens to the loft? Shuts down. And even on a good player, and you hear them all the time, try and make your change of direction smooth, the transition. Why? What you're trying to do is move the loft into a correct position. That's why your transition needs to be smooth. If it's not smooth, you'll grab all the time. And if I grab with this, what shot am I going to hit? If I grab, low left, every time. Guarantee it. Guarantee it. Every time. And actually, if you looked at that on the video, you wouldn't see an awful lot wrong with it. But the club face, yeah, grabbed it. Now, if I want to get the energy transferred correctly, and when I grab it, what happens to the wrist? I can't use it. Cannot use it. So I've lost a lot of speed and momentum in there, and then I'm trying to turn the body to create that momentum, all of a sudden off direction. So really, if I tapped, if I really made a very small swing and just allowed natural forces to work and moved the loft around my body correctly and allowed it to happen, and so people talk about people's ability to do it, I don't need a lot of brute force and ignorance. Now from here I just move the loft around, what happens? The loft stays on and it goes up and it goes straight. So I move the loft around to a position where it's useful to me. And it's not out of plane, it's not off plane, it's around my body and through. So all of a sudden I've got the correct loft on every single time. goes up and it goes over. And provided you don't grab in the change, you can increase the speed here with what we talked about earlier. Here, don't grab, move it. Now, use the thrust of the body at the correct time. So we move the thrust of the body correctly with the loft, and that's how you would hit it further. So you're moving the loft through positions and you're allowing the loft to stay on the club. You're moving it around and grab it.
Oh, de grond, hè?
Grabbed it.
Ja, hij raakte de grond.
Now if you move the loft around and let it fall, it goes up all the time. Move it around. Use the loft. Hit it out the part where you want the ball to go over and not under. So anybody that uses the grab, you can see it all the time, you put it on video, as opposed to moving the loft, even the shortest shot, shortest swing from here, moving the loft around and allowing the momentum of the club, move it, let it drop. You don't need all that force to hit the ball a long way. You use the energy of the club. I've set a box in the sand here, and all you've got to do to be a good bunker player is to actually take the box out. So you come down into position, leaving the loft and the bounce through position. One of the most important things in playing a bunker shot is how you set yourself into the shot to start with. And what I've done here is I've drawn what I call a station to actually make sure that you set correctly every time you hit a bunker shot. I know you can't draw into a bunker when you're playing, but this is a practice bunker and we're going to draw into it. We're going to draw, first of all, we're going to draw the target line, which really is a straight line to target and a straight line behind it. So that's going straight at the target. I then draw a right angle line here, and that's my ball position off my left heel. And what I like to do is not stand wide open. I like to stand with my left foot, which is about 60 degrees open, and my left knee pointing at my left toe. And that really gives me a perfect set for my position into the actual shot. And I like to lower myself into the shot. I see too many people stand up and just try and get the club to actually get the ball up. What you've got to do in bunkers is get down to actually stay down to get the ball up. So we're set. And now what I've got here is I've got the line of my toes, which is slightly left of my target line. It really is slightly left. And this line is parallel to it. So it's a slight swing across the line, but only slight. The one thing that most people miss out is the next line, which is at 90 degrees to my toe line. So it's a little bit behind where my ball position is. And this is really important in being able to use the bounce, which Roger's going to talk to you about in a little bit, correctly in a bunker. And if you don't use the bounce in a bunker, you're really going to struggle with your bunker shots. So we're set in nice and low, and now I've got my hand position and my shaft over this line here, and I've opened the club face a little bit. What I haven't done is shove my hands forward to open the club face, because now the loft's aiming in the wrong direction. Here, set it in. Now the next most important thing is how you grip the club. And really this is a specialist shot, so we really need a specialist grip. Now the specialist grip is what I call a butterfly grip. Here, looks like a butterfly, so I've got a very strong left hand, very weak right hand. The reason for that, very simply, is because the wrists set so much better and they allow you to keep the loft on the club on the way back and the bounce. Now this is the most common fault in poor bunker players. What most poor bunker players is, because they haven't got a specialist grip, they actually swing back and they take the loft and the bounce off, which is obviously a recipe for disaster. So then we've got the club in position here, we've got strong left, weak right, and now we've got the loft aiming correctly. So we go around, up, I've got the loft correct, I've got the bounce correct, and then from there I move down. I've set a box in the sand here, and all you've got to do to be a good bunker player is to actually take the box out. So you come down into position, leaving the loft and the bounce through position.
Peter, that was a fabulous shot. That's not an average shot. You're 1.5 feet from the pin. Maybe it's average for you, but it's great for me. Really average. But let's talk about how the wedge works in a bunker shot. It's the only shot in golf where you do not hit the golf ball. Think about that. You do not hit the golf ball. If you did, it would go way longer than you wanted. So you use the bounce in this shot exclusively. And as a matter of fact, the first contact point in the sand is the trailing edge of the sole. So Peter, if you could address the club. Okay. Now he's loading on his left, so the bottom of his arc is going to be right at the ball, because the bottom, you need to hit the sand first. He's going to hit the beginning of his box and come out at the end of his box right there. And so the first contact, if you take a backswing and come down slowly, he's releasing that club head, so the first contact point in the sand is the trailing edge. So he has the face open, which creates a little bit more bounce, and then the first contact point is the trailing edge of the sole. Okay, and he's hitting behind, or the beginning of the box, and hitting underneath the ball and following through, and we'll have a great result because of that. You're using the bounce.
Yeah, use the bounce.
And what that does, it allows you to penetrate the sand to the correct depth that you want. Okay, if you did not, if you hit it with the leading edge, you're probably going to have the shaft too far forward in the lean, which reduces loft. You want to have loft in this shot, and you're going to dig too much. This controls the penetration into the sand in the correct depth for a great shot.
What I like to call it, Roger, is I like to call it where the club can ripple the sand like this, ripple it, so the sand is carried on a ripple, yeah? And of course, if you dig, you can't do that. If you ripple the sand, you're going to be a good bunker player. If you dig the sand, you're going to struggle, really.
That's a great demonstration.
And that's, so from here, as we go through it, I'm going to try and ripple that box out. So from here, I get set in, nice and tight, strong on the left side, keep the loft and the bounce on, and from there, I just take the box out.
Very nice again. Average for you, but great for us.
Right, plug lies in a bunker, and really there's basically two ways to play this shot. Most people close the face, hit down hard, take an awful lot of sand, the sand's moving forward, it carries the ball forward, and it has a lot of release on it when it hits the ground. This is the safest way to play plug lies. So really most people close the club face, get the leading edge digging, so this time a dig will actually work, but you lose total control, and I'm going to demonstrate that really quite markedly, that the ball will actually release, and it's really a closed club face, and as steep as you can, take as much sand as you can and hit it, but that ball just releases very quickly. The reason it releases is because you're pressing the sand forward, the ball's carried on the forward momentum of the sand, and it releases. So if you've got a lot of room to work with, very easy shot to play and very effective. If you've not got a lot of room to play and you have to get the ball close, there is another way, but it's actually a very specialist way. Right, and I'm going to show you another way to play a plug lie if you have to land it softly and get it to land softly, and obviously you get a lot more control, but it is a high tariff shot, so if you haven't practiced it a lot, I probably wouldn't try it. I'd probably use the first one and go for a 20-foot putt back to try and hold your par. But if you have to, and you'll see a lot of the really good bunker players play this shot occasionally. Now when it's plugged, what you really need to do is cut the sand, and most people obviously close the club face, it takes the bounce off, leading edge cuts, great. it'll actually get the ball out. Now then, the sharpest part of your club is in your heel, the heel of the club there, right at the heel. That's a real sharp part. And what good players will do, if they need to land it soft out of a plug lie, they will start using the heel to dig. So this time I'm going to lower my hands so the heel is actually going to reach the sand first. It's going to cut the sand, and what I'm going to do there is I'm going to try and hold the sand on the face as long as possible so that the actual cushion of the sand under the ball elevates the ball. So that will look something like this. My butterfly grip here, and I'm going to what we call heel cut and hold it. So I go really steep, dig, and it comes out really quite soft and it won't run away from you. There is a third option, but don't try this one in tournaments. You better really experiment in your practice bunker first. Again, slightly open this time, not way open, slightly open, a little bit of heel dig, and for the real soft one, what's going to happen, I'm going to dig, and then I'm going to just take the pressure from my arms. I'm just going to lift my arms a little bit. As I dig, I'm going to lift my arms a little bit and make it come out really, really soft. And really soft arms, take the pressure off the shot. But when we watch somebody hit one-arm shots, most of them are only just standing there and they're hitting at it. They're hitting at it. You know, all right, my hand-eye coordination's good, but from there, I have no idea where that ball's going to start, how it's going to fly, and where it's going to finish. Because I've just, like most people on the range, I've hit at it. And I've hit it, all right, I've hit it. But now, what we're saying is, what we need to do is to say, right, get the body in position, move the spring loading, let the spring unload, and move down. So from here, I'm loading the body, I'm loading the arm, and then all of a sudden I'm getting the ball going in the right direction with the correct flight and the correct spin. And all I'm doing there, I'm not hitting at it, I'm letting my muscles do the work, which then allows the wrist joint to do its work, and then we get that natural speed at the bottom.